Njoki. I'm the managing director, founder, Glasshouse PR Limited. I grew up in a village called Garariga in Limuru. Every time I tell people Garariga, they're like, what? How do you pronounce that? And then I went to schools that have interesting names, like Garariga Primary School. And then I went to Kagwe Girls. After that, I finished high school at the age of 16. Where I got a B, but I could not afford to go to campus. We could not afford for me to go to campus. So I had to stay home for like almost a whole year. But then towards the end of that 1 year, I went to Kenya National Theatre because they used to invite young people to go and try out acting. So I went. I don't remember going through any, I don't remember going through any audition. So I just went and they said, oh, we have a place where you can act like a child. So I joined them and we used to do set books. I think we did set books for 3 months where I was acting like a child. Then after that, the year that followed, my mom was now able to get me to go to college where I studied IT. So I need to share with this that when I was in high school, I really wanted to study computer science. And I had also done computer in high school. I used to love programming. But then when I finished, of course, first of all, you don't have the grade to go and study that. You don't have the A. Second of all, you can't afford, even if you're going to a parallel program, you can't afford that. So when she got money to get me to go to college, I went to study IT, a certificate in IT. Then after you're done with that certificate, you do diploma. When you do diploma, you go to higher diploma. So I went to Graffin's College in Westlands, which was closer to Limuru for some reason. Anyway, so I went to study that then. So when I finished the IT, I remember I was very passionate still about programming. So what I did was I approached this guy and I told him, you know how I can create a program for you and I'll charge you 10K. So I created a simple program, went and sold it to him, but of course he never paid me. But then for some reason, I started thinking how I'd become a software developer. And at that particular period, a friend of mine had this friend who had a small IT firm. So they told me, my friend is looking for some people to work in her IT firm. Would you like to come and work there? So I was like, oh, awesome, that's fun. So I went to this company. It was called SoftLink Options. So I went to this company, and then when I got there, I thought they were going to put me in the production so that I become the developer or the programmer of the year. Then when I got there, she told me, you'll start by doing sales. I was like, say what now? Sales, okay. So, but then in hindsight, when I look back, it made sense. So she put me in sales department, and that's where I started. I'd go from one building to another in the CBD, selling. This is 2009. You're selling domains and websites. People are chasing you out of their office. People hate salespeople. So it was very frustrating and very, but you learn a lot, but it was very frustrating. But then you'd collect a lot of cards so that when you go back to the office, you tell her, you see, I've collected cards. These are my leads. So that was very interesting. I think my passion, and you realize it over the years, is to see, number one, myself fully living out my highest expression on earth, and yet now helping other people to do that. And that's where branding comes in, where you're able to know the knowledge of a thing, a person, an organization, the mind that was behind it when this organization was coming out, or this service was being born, or this product was being born, and helping those people to fully explode on that. But yet it starts with me. Do I know the knowledge of God about me before I was formed in my mother's womb, and am I going to achieve that? And that's my goal. I think the encouragement, I'd encourage everyone, especially young women. Number one, nothing is impossible. I think the world and the society has made us think that you can't be a computer programmer, you can't be an engineer. And over the time, you've seen people who have come out and they've become these people, all these things that were supposed to be a hindrance to women. The opportunities are available. It's you believing in who you are, but yet don't want to be the next person. Be who you are meant to be. So after working for this company, PR company, for 3-4 months, I remember in that PR company I was everything. I was the admin, I was the PR person, I did a lot. They didn't have a lot of staff, but I remember by 2 p.m. I was done with what I was doing, and in the afternoon I was really bored. And at that particular point in 2012, I started thinking, I think digital media is the next big thing. So I started coming up with ideas and introducing them to the people who owned the company. But for some reason, they thought I didn't know what I was talking about. But remember, because of my knowledge for IT and now there's media, I kind of understood, I kind of had a glimpse of what would happen as we go on in the future. So that frustrated me a lot. And I remember after 4 months, I really got deep. Like, I think when I have an idea and I want to explore it, I get now depressed. I got depressed and I was sick for a few days. And I remember calling the lady and I'm like, I'm not going to come back. Yeah. And that's how I quit employment, which was not proper, but that's how I quit employment. It happened to me, so don't do that to anyone else. So after I quit, I went back to the village, and I didn't even have money because they refused to pay me that month. So I only had savings of 6,000 Kenya shillings, but I had a skill. I knew IT, like I could create things online, and I had I had connections with the people I had met through BNI. So when I went back home with my 6,000 Kenya shillings, I bought a modem, which didn't work in my village. So I had to borrow money to buy another modem. And then after buying that modem, I started by creating. So first of all, I didn't know the name. I wanted to name the company. So I remember I started with a very ridiculous name. And then I remember telling someone who had met in BNI, then they were like, Mary, this name is terrible. Come to my office, I'll give you branding for free. So I went to his office and he started asking me some questions. He was like, what do you want your company to represent? And I remember saying transparency and clear communication. Then he was like, okay, what about glass? I'm like, yeah, Glasshouse PR. And that's how it was formed. I remember the last coins I had in my pocket, I ran to Sharia Center, Sharia House, and registered the name quickly before someone could get a glimpse of it. And then that's how I started. Created the website, and started marketing the company, just like that, from the village. Yeah. The number one difficult thing was people thought I was really young. I was 23 when I started. Number two was the kind of discrimination from the people who have been in this industry for long, and there's this new person coming in, so they already have their own groups. Number three, maybe capital. Yet all these things became an opportunity because they were telling a particular story. For example, I discovered that capital doesn't have to be money. You can have a skill and network and it becomes your capital. Number two, I discovered there's a mystery behind someone showing up who is not part of the group and taking over. So when I look back, I'm like, God is always telling a story with our lives, and probably that's the story that my life was telling, where you come from nowhere. First of all, you've not even finished that PR degree. You're not in that industry. You don't know this thing, yet you're coming and taking over. And how I would see proof, and how God would keep surprising me was that first year, I think 2 months into the business, we get a call, or I get a call, because I, myself, and I get a call, and it's from Google Kenya. And they're like, hi, I would like to talk to Mary. And I'm like, hold on for Mary. Anyway, so I take the phone and I'm like, they say they want us to go pitch, blah, blah, blah. So I went and picked kids from Desta University because I didn't have staff. I told them about it. We came up with ideas. We came up with a proper presentation. And I told them, so from today you work for Glasshouse, eh? Yeah, so we go there and we do a presentation, and we actually shortlisted until the end, and then they realized, wait, this company, it's not even incorporated, it has a business name. But there's a lot I learned through that process, because it was a 2 month process, that even when 2 years later, when Facebook came knocking, it was proof of God, it was proof that God was still in this business, God was still with me, God was still with the platform that he had led me to create. So it was very interesting when Facebook came and they didn't take the companies that had been there for 20 years, 100 years, or whatever years. They took this company that had been there for 2-3 years, and that kept, my faith. It grew my faith, and I'm like, oh, the impossible can become possible. I got my first award in Kenya 2015, Founder of the Year, but then the other awards that came about were from the South. And it was very interesting to see that narrative as well, because the first serious client I also got was from South Africa. Yeah, so it's very interesting to see that, where other countries celebrate what is in Kenya, and then when they start recognizing you, that's when now the people start recognizing you locally. But it was it's humbling to be given those accolades, but yet they don't define who I am. They're just an encouragement, and they keep building my faith. For me, success is truly attaining the highest expression of who I am on earth. And that's how I term success. Until the day I will know I have become everything that was in the mind of God, that day I'll be, oh my God, I am now successful. So I'm in the process of becoming like him, becoming like God. We were created in the image and his likeness. And his likeness, there are these things he's put in us, like he's graced me to be good in branding, business, PR, all these things. So the day I sit down, or rather the day I meet him and he say, well done, good and faithful servant, that will be my success. Running Glasshouse for the last 9 years, it has been a process. So for me, the process for success has been interacting with the company that he's given me. Then another thing come about, you're working with people, and you handle them in a certain way, then you realize that's not the proper way to handle them, so you overcome that, so you grow. So the next thing happens where you're interacting with a client, and in PR we have clients even who come and they are abusive, and you handle it in a different, you're not abusive, or you calm down, so you see you've grown in that regard. So you keep growing as a person, and you kind of can track, so that when the same thing come to you or approaches you, you're able to see, oh, this thing is coming this way, I know how to handle this. So the processes of growing as a person are the markers of the growth. Number one, truly, I want to give it to God's favor. Number two, remember sometimes when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of clients, but I understood search engine optimization. So what I was doing PR for Glasshouse PR. I was always writing on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm writing that I'm doing this thing. So I kept writing every day until people noticed. And that's how Google, when they Googled PR firms in Kenya, we were among the first, and we were just like 2 or 3 months old. And that's how they called. Twitter, I'd be in conversations. I remember a journalist asking me, you're in Kenya? I thought Glasshouse PR was a company in New York. So there's also the way, truly, because it's not by my strength, there is a way God just positioned the company. And now when you start working with people, now they start talking about you and they refer you to other people. My highlight, I'll start with 2014, where I met this lady. She was working for Career Point Kenya, and she was so fascinated by my story, and she wrote it. So when she wrote it, we didn't even think that website is read by people. That story went viral. So for the first time, I noticed that my life was supposed to inspire people. I didn't know that. I thought I was just doing what I know best. So it was a highlight, because it gave me a marker. I have to be careful who I'm becoming, or I have to be mindful because there are people who are looking at me to inspire them. So I have to be very mindful. That was a highlight. It went viral, and that's how media houses started calling me for media interviews. Then number 2, my other highlight was 2016 when I was shortlisted to go and do a presentation in the US for a program I had developed for PR, a software I developed for PR. And the highlight is not even going, the highlight is what happened during that conference, because there were many people, and then we were told that Chris Saka was coming to speak. Chris Saka at that time was huge in the investment. He had just invested in, I think, Uber, Instagram, etc. So we were told he's coming. Then I'm like, oh, I have to go see and take a photo of him. And I enter the room, and he enters, and then he says, today I want to sit with a woman on stage, and I want to discuss diversity. And it's everyone was screaming, everyone was whatever, it's a huge hall, and then he points at me and tells me, you come. And for me, that was a highlight, because not necessarily because of who he is. I saw the way you can sit with, I saw the picture of where I was going, and I saw how God truly, I had gone to take a photo of him. I went on stage with him. He told me himself, come to the backstage, let's take a photo. I can't believe you've come all the way from Africa. Like, no, he was very fascinated. And there were other black people in the room, but somehow I was highlighted for him. So that was another highlight. I think also 2017, which in terms of business was what people would refer as normal business, was we would have just enough to pay people and rent, and that's it. It was a very interesting year. But the same year, there are people who I met, and I think it was my first time to travel to Nigeria. Or now that's the time I started traveling out, and there's a way my mind was transformed, and the things I started seeing about myself and about the African continent and about Glasshouse PR. So it changed my whole mind about what I'm about. 2013 is another highlight, because it was my first time to get to a plane. And where was I going? I was going for this conference called Africa Rise in Ethiopia. And when I got to this conference as well, it changed the way I viewed myself. I met people from different African countries, and some of the lessons I'm learning is to be more patient with people, especially now when you start working with different people and the company is growing and you have big teams, and not to be too hard on, not to think that you're on the same level in terms of the experiences that you've had, but to be very patient with people. Of course, I've learned perseverance, definitely, because there are times you just have, nothing is happening physically, so you have to persevere in the physical, but yet your inner man is growing. So also learning how to remove your focus from what is happening with you, what you're seeing with your naked eyes, and focusing on what is happening in the inner you, because that causes growth. So I kind of have discovered a secret of growth where my focus is no longer things are happening around me, yet I'm focusing on what is happening in the inside of me. And the latest lesson was not to react. I think that's what I'm learning, that there can be fire outside here and I don't have to react. I think for many years I used to react or respond. So just learning how not to react, and then to react when I'm needed to react, and to calm down. What I'd tell a girl who is growing and wants to get into different careers, number one, the most important thing is to know who they are. And as I said earlier, knowing your identity, which goes back to your source, where you came from. Once you identify your identity, or you're able to know who you are, or know your DNA or what sets you apart. It can be even music, it can be singing, it can be rapping, it can be you love numbers, it can be you love marketing like me, or you love media, PR, all these things. Then you're able to now set yourself apart and grow and become that which you are meant to be. In 2017, I started a platform called A Billion Startups, where I mentor entrepreneurs. And so far, like I have over 200 entrepreneurs, and we are looking to grow on that platform. And for people to see where we are, just go on Google and search A Billion Startups. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all those platforms. And we help entrepreneurs realize their dreams and also grow. People can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as Mary Njoki, as well as the company. You can visit our website www.glasshousepr.co.ke, Facebook, Glasshouse PR, all the platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Glasshouse PR.